think what I have to do, because I know there's something I gotta do with this Charmeleon. I gotta go like that. Because that's just what you do. Because, you know, just abuse a Charmeleon. That's how you get to evolve. Team Rocket was right after all. Oh, snap! Pokemon Snap! Hell yeah, Pokemon Snap. This was a game I played the ever-living crap out of as a kid, but I never owned it. I only managed to rent it a few times, and every time I did, it was an absolute blast to play. I think Pokemon Snap is kind of like the quintessential Nintendo experience, as well as being an experience that is just so entirely indicative of both the console it's on, but also Nintendo as a whole. It's not a game that's trying to be all that realistic. It's not a game that is necessarily trying to push the technological boundaries to be like the most advanced thing ever. It is a game that is completely content being its own unique little thing and just having fun with it. And you know, if nothing else, you gotta respect that. But on a console with no less than 5 Pokemon games, I think this is the definitive Pokemon experience, despite how different it is. I mean, if you wrote down on paper the combination of Pokemon plus rail shooter, you would think that end result would be not a very child-friendly experience, and also very bloody and gory, and you know, that too could be very interesting. But this is a very interesting way to completely turn the genre of shooting things a whole bunch on its head, because instead of bullets, you're using film, because you are a photographer in a tank. A tanktographer. Now the story follows you, some kid whose name I think defaults to Todd. I think he got like one episode in the anime where I think they called him Snap. I genuinely don't remember. It has been like 25 years since I've seen that anime. But the point is, Professor Oak is tired of people just catching Pokemon, and decides he'd rather have you take photos of them, because that's better to study, I guess. Actually, I think he's trying to document the total number of monsters on this one very specific, very odd island that is like 7 different types of environment all rolled in one. Seriously, it's a very varied environment, to the point where it's kind of unnatural, but that actually kind of works into the plot as well. Now the idea to the gameplay is very, very simple. You and your tank are dropped onto a set of train tracks that move from an opening teleporter to a closing teleporter at the end of the stage. And between those 2 points are a whole lot of Pokemon. And you gotta take photos of every single one. Well, you can take up to 60. The game kind of limits you. Once you get to the end of the stage, you get to take a look at your photo album and see all the shots you've made. And then you have to pick the one defining photo of every single individual different Pokemon you've taken a photo of during the course of that level. Now this actually leads to kind of one weird moment where you can take a photo of multiple Pokemon, but the game always just randomly seems to assign which Pokemon is the focus. Like, say if you took a photo of, say, a Jigglypuff and a Coughing next to each other, the game would probably arbitrarily say, okay, it's a Jigglypuff photo. But then you have another Jigglypuff photo, but you needed a Coughing photo, but that one didn't count, and you don't have any others, meaning you gotta go through the level again. Now, to be fair, through the progression of the game, you're going to have to go through every level multiple times. However, there's a consistent theme of having to go through the level only to achieve a variation of your initial goals. And because of that, you kind of end up having to go through the entire level again just for one single different thing. And that different thing can end up unlocking new levels, that's great, but it's a long way to get there, and the game does run very, very slowly. Now, to try and make this retracing of steps a little bit more palatable, of course, you can take more photos of existing monsters, and this could in turn get you a better score than your existing photos, in which case they will automatically always replace your existing ones. If they're lesser, for some reason you get the choice between replacing your old ones and keeping the new one, which is a little odd, but you can do that as well. But at the same time, the game does run very, very slowly normally. There is a way to mitigate this, as you do later on get a tool that effectively speeds up your tank significantly, but you only get that after you visited like all the levels and gone through about 80, maybe 90% of the game, so that comes a little too late. However, it is a part of a greater expansion of gameplay, and I love this feature about this game. Basically, you start out with just your camera and your tank. Nothing too special, but you know, it gets the job done. You can take pictures of Pokemon, that's great. And then eventually, when you take enough photos of Pokemon and you take ones of a significant number of total points, then suddenly you unlock Pokemon food, which can allow you to lure Pokemon into different situations to take different pictures of them. Getting a photo of a Pokemon eating and another Pokemon trying to take that food away from them, that's going to be worth a few more points than just seeing that Pokemon stand around looking dumb. A little bit after that, you can get the Pester Ball, because when bribery doesn't work, harassment seems to. That's a good life lesson there, Pokemon. Animal harassment. It works when you need photos, I guess. And this basically just makes Pokemon annoyed with you, but sometimes you need that in life, I guess. But that's sort of the thing. As you take photos and you get more points and you visit more areas and you see new Pokemon, you end up unlocking more tools that allow you to take better photos, to capture more Pokemon in different positions that are worth more points, and in turn make you a better, in Professor Oak's eyes, Pokemon photographer. Now again, I have to highlight that is in Professor Oak's eyes, and this probably wouldn't affect anyone else really, but speaking as someone who's taken photography in college, Professor Oak don't know shit about composition. If you want points in this game, the Pokemon always has to be dead center of the shot, which, you know, rule of thirds, Oak. Maybe learn to, you know, appreciate leading lines or force perspectives. The only thing in terms of composition Oak really respects, other than being objectively wrong and focusing entirely on dead center shots, is when multiple Pokemon interact with each other in different situations. And you know, that's appreciated, certainly. But, yeah, learn about the rule of thirds. That was like literally day one of photography class. But this game has so much to it too. Despite the fact this game only really has like 6 levels, it has a 7th, but it's basically a secret bonus level that's mostly empty. You know, all of these levels are filled with secrets and different ways to take photos of Pokemon and interesting ways to interact with Pokemon. Now, if I did have one other complaint about this game in terms of gameplay, it's that this game doesn't have a full complement of Pokemon. Now granted, this came out during the days of Red, Blue, and Yellow, so of course, that would only limit you to potentially 151 monsters. I guess if they wanted to be cheeky, they could have thrown Missing Number in there to give you 152. Actually, that would have been a cool bonus level as well. Glitch World. Seriously, Game Freak. Think about it. But this game doesn't even come with the full complement of 151. It actually cuts it down to about, I think, 65 or so. It's definitely limited, but at the same time, given the way that you're constantly interacting and finding new ways to interact with them to discover new monsters, because seriously, to find some monsters, you can't just be taking photos. You actually have to find new and unique ways to interact with monsters using your food and your pester balls. You know, it's fascinating and it's still a lot of fun. But seriously, more monsters would have definitely been appreciated, and also more levels, and just make a sequel because this game is great. Seriously, overall, my biggest complaint with this game, I just want more of it, and that's basically just a sign that the game's done everything right. The controls are great, considering it's an N64 controller anyway. Seriously, the controller on the N64 is not very good, but overall it controls great, and the adventure as a whole is an absolute blast to play, plus a totally unique one. The overall presentation to Pokemon Snap is, well, it's certainly indicative of its time. I think it's using some of the models and animations from Pokemon Stadium, but at the same time, you know, there's a lot of completely unique animations in this game, and you know what? The Pokemon all look great, and there's definitely a lot of stuff that was made clearly just for this game in this game. And overall, the audio, you know, when I first played this, I didn't think the audio was all that impressive, but you know, while I was playing, I was getting really into it. The soundtrack, along with the game in general, is just a really mellow, chill, feel-good soundtrack, and it's really damn catchy. Overall, the presentation of Pokemon Snap, pretty amazing, especially considering that this is an N64 game, a console that definitely likes to date itself with its kind of awkward polygonalness. This game actually holds up really well, I think. Now, if you want a copy of Pokemon Snap on the N64, cheapest one I'm seeing right now is $20, and that's not too bad. Like I said, this game isn't necessarily the longest. I managed to play this game to its entirety, and you can see a full playthrough of it that I'll put up in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's not a super big game by any means, and it only has a few levels, but at the same time, once you kind of clear the main levels, it sort of opens itself up to more secrets, and once you unlock those secrets, then you can see the final level and a bunch of other stuff. And finding some of those monsters is really tough. I think I ended up missing like 6 or 7. I did not get a Goldeen or a Starmie, nor did I find a Doug Trio at any point, and I remember them being in this game. but at the same time, this game is an absolute blast to play, and you know, I have to give a huge shout out and thank you to someone who wished to remain anonymous, but a very cool person who absolutely made my day. I was having a really crappy week, and when I saw this at my doorstep, I just had the biggest grin on my face because I played this so much as a kid. I love this game. To finally be able to play this whenever I want and have it in my collection, this is really special to me. And you know, Pokemon Snap is a very indicative game of the N64. Like I said at the start, it's not the most technologically advanced, it's not necessarily the most realistic, but it's trying to be its own unique brand of fun, and it's absolutely having a blast with it. And you know what? I absolutely love this game. It is a great game. And like I said at the top, you know, on a system that has no less than 5 Pokemon games on it, this is the definitive experience. Certainly, it's not as RPG-ish as the 3 Pokemon Stadium games, but, you know, those games really aren't all that great, seeing as, unless you want to fork over a lot of money for peripherals, you're stuck using pre-made monsters that really don't mean anything to you. And those games cut out all of the adventure in the Pokemon Adventure, and you know, that's kind of boring. And you know, the less said about Hey You Pikachu, the better. But Pokemon Snap, you know, it might not be an RPG and it might not have battling monsters. The idea of combining a rail shooter with a Pokemon game, and the idea of discovering this island and finding the secrets of this island, and discovering all the hidden monsters and finding new ways to see them interact, and learning more about them while exploring these environments, that is an amazing adventure. It's entirely unique, it's entirely indicative to the N64. We absolutely need a sequel. Seriously, get on this, because it's amazing. And if you collect for the N64, you absolutely need Pokemon Snap. There's Scyther. We're running low on Pokemon pictures to snap with. Lapras. Wow, Scyther's flying really far away. What are you guys doing? Oh, you're doing a thing. I wasn't even paying attention. Wow, I am inept. I'm the worst Pokemon photographer.